Kelly with Union Products Power. He was so grateful to come in today. He's from Indiana, so he tracked here, spent the night, and he's going to give us all of his knowledge on Union Products Electrical. So keep in mind this meeting is strictly on Union Products Electrical, and that's just for ROI stations. So we're not touching base on any other electrical except this product today. So I'm kind of going to let Steve have the floor, do his thing, and then I'm going to kind of step in and fill in where he needs me to. Okay? Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Carrie. After the meeting, you can say we had an electrifying meeting this morning. First, we want to look at the parts, just make you feel familiar with them. Then go over a little bit of the techie stuff, so that if you have questions, you can answer them. Let you know how to specify them and how they work in the furniture. Carrie can take that part. We have a simple brochure that makes it very easy to understand. She wants to hold them back to the salespeople. There's a little box there. I'm sure she wouldn't mind if you want one to pick it up. There are just a few basic parts to the system. If you think about plug strips, you can understand how the product works. The plug strip is very similar to this. It has outlets where you plug in, and then it has a tail where you plug it into the wall. You can plug strip to plug strip to plug strip, but don't do that. It's highly illegal. So we have ways to continue the power. You can, say in a smaller station, just plug one right into the other to continue power. But if you want to jump past, you use an extension tractor cable that'll go, it plugs into this one and then plugs into the next track. If you think about using a plug strip, then using just an extension cord, that's what this is, just an extension. Then the whole thing needs to plug in someplace, and if you have a plug strip, you plug it into the wall or plug it into this. So we have a power entry cable. So the electrician hardwires this somewhere in the building. It can be in a column or a power pole or in a wall. There are even monuments in the floor where you can power this to get you started. So once it starts, it can power the first one. Then you use an extension to get between them to power the next one. And we have a specialty cable for ceilings that it's flex. We can have one with us. Flex that goes into a power pole, and they wire it in the ceiling. So it would be 15 foot long.
So basically, you guys might see this when you're placing your electrical order. This is what we, the designers, give to Fallon every single time. So ROI pretty much orders the same product every time. We order the T-box, which was this portion, which has the duplexes on it, and that gets installed. This is, if you guys do not use this tool, it's great for your clients. We have this in the back. It shows how we install the electrical to the underside of a surface. So now that we're doing sit-stand surfaces, we can install it to the underside, or we've been installing it to the panel in those cases where the surface is sit-stand. So that's the T-box. And then with the next one, then you go down to this line item below, and that's the end feed, which was this feed. And that's, that end feed is for when it's directly to the wall. If you're using a power pole, you'll get the ceiling feed, and that has a longer cord to go up through the ceiling. And then on the next page, we have what we call the pass-throughs, or as some people call them, the whips. So the whip is what's connecting all the pieces together, and I have a diagram to show you that, how we do our station layouts in a little bit. So it's very simple, like that's it. That's all we order from them. And the pass-throughs vary. They come in all different sizes. They're all the same product. It's just changing size. So it's just basically those three parts that we order from them. And it's all 15 amp. And I'm gonna let Steve explain the whole 15-20 amp situation now. What you got, Megan?
For the power pole, it mentions that the pole is not included.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the pole, you're not getting the pole with this. It's strictly just the inside. Good point. Thank you.
Let's look at the assembly. The furniture, wherever you want to put it, gets these little mounting brackets, little plastic pieces, and they just screw in place. Then, the G-box has these little ends where it just snaps in. The mounting brackets are mounted exactly where they need to be, then this just snaps into place. And it'll release to come back out. Then, the occasional problem you'll ever have with the system is somebody will say, my outlet isn't working. It's because somebody didn't plug something in all the way. We have what we call a sure latch. If this thing's in place on the connector body, it's either fully installed or it won't install at all. So, we insert the connector nose first, and we push down onto the seat. And there are two latches here that there's a latch on each side that connect down in here. Now, if one of those latches isn't caught, half of these aren't going to work. So we have a sure latch. Shipped from the factory in every part. When that thing seats, the connector's in. So the installer, it's in the instructions when the installer gets it.
And then that just stays on there?
Yes,
So the orange piece is the sure.
sure latch. Yeah, when you visit the job site, you find these all over the floor. That's a typical job site.
Oh, so if
Do
those
they
are
automatically come with?
Yeah, they come with the parts. When the part comes into you, that thing's installed. So a lot of installers don't know what it is, they just rip it off. But that's the purpose of that, is to be sure it's fully engaged.
So we should definitely keep an eye out for that, because I know we have a lot of follow-ups that come through where it's just like the connection is not, and it's usually just the snapping that it's not fully connected, or things got shifted around and pulled apart. But actually maybe sales reps, if you can keep an eye out and just look and see if that orange snap is on there too.
And let all the installers know that, like I did, and all.
Megan?
So it's kind of like if that connector, if that black part is not fully snapped in, that orange thing will not go on.
That's right. If I partially engage this, get one flap and one not. I've got the latch in on this side, this latch is not. This thing won't go in.
For it.
All right. The sure latch is shipped with every part. The purpose of the sure latch is to make sure this latch is properly into the track. The sure latch opens for the installer to install the part. Once the part's installed, the sure latch should go back into place. Two things will happen. If this thing gets cattywampus and only one latch is caught, the sure latch will not seat. If the sure latch is fully seated, they can't get the part in place. So the sure latch, once the part's in place and the latches are fully engaged, they put the sure latch on, they know it's a good install. So it's foolproof.
Margaret, what do you got?
Now, I've heard in the past, are all of the outlets the same? Because I've heard that you shouldn't plug computers into certain ones.
Well, what we've done is create duplexes that are split. So everybody in the entire installation has access to all four circuits. It used to be very common in the old days of computers that they were very sensitive. but the new stuff is so hardened that it's not all that important. Typically, you advise your customers to use the isolated ground for the computers, which is the blue and the orange. And then for utility use, they use circuits 1 and 2, which is the black and the red. So we were talking earlier about another problem that you might have. This thing has 80 amps of potential power. Let's say each of the circuits, each color is 20 amps. So you have 4 circuits at 20 amps each. That gives you 80 amps of power. So when the electrician wires the system, he'll pull out the 4 wires he needs to go wire to the circuit breaker in the wall. So he'll go put these under the circuit breaker. So when that breaker comes on and off, it turns the circuits on and off. Each of those is connected to a 20 amp breaker. So what that does is they give each and every one of these circuits, say right here, if you look at the face, it's marked with the 1 red, that's the circuit. So it gives each one of those 20 amps of power. Well, you've got 4, so this single device has 80 amps of potential power. And to make that relative to you, well, we were talking yesterday, she liked the analogy. For you to understand the circuitry, each one of those circuits has 20 amps of power. Think about your water at home. If you think about the water line being the circuit, every time you turn on a faucet, you're drawing some amperage from the circuit. Now, making it relate, a computer today, about an amp, a monitor about an amp, and that's it. We looked at the copier out here, it was only 3 amps. So with 80 amps of power, you could make a long run, power a lot of people.
Really, the one thing you found that was high in sucking amps was a personal heater.
Exactly. That's another problem we've had, especially in cold areas like Chicago. People bring little space heaters, put it underneath their desk. Those are 13 amps, so 8 of them in an office below area. But that worst case scenario there is most generally that breaker back in the panel box will trip. Somebody will come out and look and say, well, who brought in the space heater?
So that's just I think that's kind of changed over time. I think before things were computers and everything, we're using a lot more amps, but over time they just have now started. So now, we used to typically say you can get 6 stations out of 1 end feed. Well, more than likely you could get a lot more. If they're just using it for computers and stuff like that, you could probably go up to 8 to 10. It's about having a conversation with your client and knowing what they're using it for.
I have a question. So you order 15 or 20?
We ordered 15.
Okay. So what's the difference, or why are some people requiring 20 and some people requiring 15?
I think that was just an Itasca thing.
Okay.
It's unique.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because when I spoke to you about it, Steve it was very unnecessary, and I don't even know if it was that particular person in Itasca too, where we ran into that situation.
I think there was code there.
Yeah, it was a funky situation, and we put it down, so Itasca is a funky situation.
From my point of view, I think we should start ordering 20s instead of 15s, because most of their breakers are 20s anyways. And push that beat down from the breaker.
The 20s become prohibitively expensive. You use it when you need it, because your competitors can't do that.
There is a significant difference in the price difference between the 15 amp and the 20. We sell our 15 amp for $210, and then we have to sell the 20 amp for $280. And the 210, we're making a lot bigger margin on that than what we are with the 280. So that's why we kind of are.
What's the downside of it though?
We don't make as much money.
I'm saying the downside of keeping 15, not 20. Is that the downside?
Just when different villages require the 20. But why were you saying it?
I'm just saying because it gives your clients more opportunity to have longer stations.
Yeah, I went to, this is installed in Underwriters Laboratories down in Carolina. I went in there to go through the installation. They had 12 stations on one power feed.
Right. So like he was saying 20, he was saying you have 80. You have 80, so we're using 15.
But we rarely,
Of 60.
yeah, we rarely go, our typical is we try to do 6 to 8 stations on one end feed. It's kind of what our rule of thumb is, depending on the layout. That's just kind of our go.
Yeah, the only situation you can get into with very long runs is voltage drop. Let's go back and relate to the water analogy. If you are going to water your garden, and they put her out there and your hose is over here, you put one hose down, put another hose in, put on a third one, you get to the garden, you don't have any water. That resistance in the line is voltage drop. So if you were wiring 6-foot desks and you wanted to go 20, that's too far, that's too long a run. And it's exacerbated by the way you loop down one side and come back the other. So the rule of thumb is don't go over 80 foot. Don't go 80 foot long with the run. Then you'll be all right.
Is that on the 15 or 20?
The 15.
15.
I think any of them, right? Yeah, I think that's any of them. Yeah, I think that's.
Well, here's the thought on the 15 versus the 20. That particular code, the National Electrical Code, Underwriters Laboratories, Canadian Standards Association, ETL, all play the same rule. They say if you have a 20 amp breaker, then you can use 15 amp receptacles up to 13 per line. So you can have 13 for each of those lines. So you can put in a lot of these things. The 20 amp thought is, well, if this is a 20 amp breaker and that's a 15 amp device, what happens if I plug in those extension cords and overload this device? Well, the safety standard in this will carry 40 amps, and that's where the code people get a little confused. Well, it's a 15 amp on a 20 amp circuit, let's use 20. But I think that's the only place in the country we've run into that. But it's a unique demand. It makes an expensive solution to change everything.
I've done this handy diagram to show you kind of how everything works on here. So the circles indicate grommets, and that comes standard with when we're doing a workstation. So we cut grommet holes through our panels right below the surface, so that everything can run through. So you'll see the green, that's the end feed location. So the designer will provide you this location. I'm going to make this note up. This should be provided after everything's been finalized. After you guys win the job, this is when that information should be given to the client. If you start giving them electrical feed locations at the very beginning of the job, things change so much and you just open yourself up for a risk of maybe somebody taking the wrong dimension. So it's better to wait to get that location after you know you have to go, then you get the job and everything's kind of finally in place. So the designer will provide you with that spot. The final connection, that needs to be made by an electrician. That cannot be made by the ROI installers. ROI installers will install this full interior of this, but just not that part right up there. There is on some occasions where the end feed is requested ahead of time. So the electrician might be on site, they're like, before you install, can you go ahead and just bring the end feed to the job site, we're gonna have that hooked up. That's great, but that's either the sales reps or the client's responsibility to get the end feed. ROI is not gonna make a special trip out there just to hand up the end feed, so just kind of keep that in mind. You can kind of see that my squares indicate where the boxes are going. These boxes that are installed underneath the surface. And the blue arrows indicate the pass-through whips, which is this little guy here that whips around. And then lastly, in front of all of those, you get this power trap. And you can see what it's holding, your IT cables and all that. But keep in mind, this has nothing to do with IT. with all you're getting with this system is electrical. The IT has to be handled with their IT person. Do I have anything else? I think that's it for this one. Steve, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, the 13 duplexes per circuit limit lets you sell 13 of these, 26 of these boxes. So in this scenario,
Whoops, I'm sorry. Do you need it? I go back. Here it is.
you could go 12 stations, and as long as there isn't an overrun on length, you'd be all right. But I think the 6 to 8, typically that's how
It's a good rule of
the
thumb.
plans work out anyway.
I have in the past, say you have telemarketing stations and they're like just people dropping in. I have had them where they share these. Because they're just drop-down stations. They're not doing anything. They're just plugging in their laptop for a brief moment. So you can get creative if you're wanting to save them money on the electrical. You can have maybe two telemarketing guys sharing one electrical feed. You just have to let us know so we know where we're going to cut the holes and have all the lifts and stuff.
Let's say that this were all print station, a copy room, and you would have the thing loaded with copiers. Now each copier is going to draw 3 amps, and you've got 20 amps per line. If you plugged them all into circuit 1, you would think, well, I have more amperage on that line than I have capacity, so I'm going to blow breakers. That's not true. These stations are all intermittent use. As in the IPA last. So if somebody's printing, the other printers are sitting idle. So in general, you just won't run into capacity problems with the amperage issue. It's almost a non-issue nowadays.
I did want to show you guys, so based on this situation here, if I were to submit this for order, this is what I would be ordering. So there were 6 stations, so I ordered 6 of the T boxes. Each station received its own T box. And then I ordered 1 end feed, which was the entry into the wall. And then I just counted my blue arrows, and I had 5 of them, and typically in a 6x6, we do a 48-inch wide lip. It's kind of our standard. So that's then submitted to order entry, and that's what Fallon orders off of.
Back on page.
Do you like this page?
Now, do we order those clips separate, or those come with the boxes?
It comes with the mounting brackets.
So that comes with the box, part of the box? Because we never received those.
These mounting brackets. Do we have to order them? They're ordered separately, so we're not ordering them.
Right?
But we can order them.
How do you
So
mount
we
it?
need to start ordering.
What are you ordering, or what are you mounting with?
It's true.
Screws?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
I don't see
Once
it.
in a while, we will receive those clips.
I don't know how once in a while you receive those.
So is that the
Sometimes we do.
TPA?
Now, the one you just showed us, is that the U or the A?
There's no-
You want- So Steve's saying we want the A. And how many mounting brackets do you get per box? Or should you order?
You can see the price was 5,000, below 5,000 on price. More than 5,000.
I wonder if we should just order a bunch of. Yeah, that sounds like we should just order a bunch.
What's the difference, just so we understand the difference between the A and the other one?
Oh, this particular mounting bracket is for Hubble. If you go in a Best Buy, you might find a very similar product to this in Hubble installation, buying TVs. So we made a custom bracket that slips into their wire wall so that they can plug on. But the one you want is an A because it mounts flat.
And what's the U?
We have like 40 of them.
Oh, okay.
The A's are right on.
Does it make a difference if you're mounting it to the underside of the work surface, or if you're mounting it to the panel? Will the A work for both?
The A is for mounting on a flat surface. And
So
then-
for mounting it to a vertical panel, does the A still work?
It's the same bracket, it's
Is it?
flat.
We can retrofit almost any system, including probably this Han system, that we can put this product in, but then we have to get a sample of the raceway and decide which mounting bracket you need. If it's flat, it's probably the A.
So for the mounting bracket, do we have to order 2 per box, or do they come in pairs?
I think we're gonna just buy it.
Okay, so kind of like have it as just a stock.
Yeah, just have it stocked, and then you guys will list with the quantity.
No.
No, because this is what's gonna happen. We'll forget about it. If all come together, then it should be a recording job.
But they come in
But they come in quantities of 5,000. They come in quantities of 5,000.
We'll discuss this afterwards. Discuss it out.
So we cannot order on this.
Let's table that.
Yeah, we'll table that. But we know, and that's very helpful, I'm glad you would have never known.
That's a basic understanding of the parts, how they go together, and how they function. But there's always a situation where somebody wants something special. When you get into specials, oftentimes it'll sell the furniture. We've had so many jobs where nobody else could do it, and that 20 amp example is one. I want to show you the parts, and they're very similar, so you can get confused with T-box and trackpad. This is trackpad, this is T-box. The reason T-box is so much more economical is the outlets are built right into the assembly, so it costs a lot less money. These outlets are removable. The beauty of that is, if you did have a copy machine that was drawing 20 amps, you could sell them at 20 amp and put 15s adjacent. But to my knowledge, nobody in the industry has these 20 amp presets except us. So you should land all the jobs you can in that particular jurisdiction. Now, you're only buying one of the options on the T-box. But what the other options, if you could go back a page and you see,
Back on this page.
don't turn the projects down because you only have 2 duplexes per station. If they want 4, 6, 8, 10, you can do it. It's just a different part that you're going to choose. So the specialty jobs are the ones that are tough to land because everybody else says, well, we can't do that. So you bring the project back. Don't say you can't do it until you're sure you can.
I want to show also, a while back, we came up with this wonderful diagram that I think is so helpful. And now we try to submit it. Hopefully, I know I sometimes forget when I'm submitting it to design. But we try to attach this diagram that shows how the electrical runs through an ROI station. So it has a nice little key off to the right-hand side here, and it kind of indicates how it's working within the station, which is, I think, really helpful, and it's usually great to get these out to the clients so they can pass on to their electrician. So just a little handy thing to make sure you use. Then I'm going to go on to I want to kind of talk about what we typically, so in a situation like this, these stations are being installed up against a wall. Unless you tell us you want those stations to have electrical, the designer is not going to quote electrical for those stations. If they're up against the wall, we're going to pull the electrical directly from the wall, and we're still going to use, we'll have the grommets cut through the panel so that they can access, cords and stuff through. But there will be no electrical box included in the station unless you specifically request it. And that's kind of just our standard rule of thumb for anything that's wall mounted. And keep in mind, in this situation, you only get the knuckle cord management for no cost. If you want the power track, which is this black plastic track, you need to let us know because that's an additional, and we have to plan for it in our specs so that we make sure we give you, the guys know that they have to plan to cut that. Are there any questions on this guy? Cool, clear. And then I have just our basic important takeaways. So our electrical right now is 210 per station. There will, I have to look at some things, but Union Products is gonna be having a cost increase. So that might be changing. We're gonna look it over and see how we're doing. That's with the 15 amp standard. Again, keep in mind this is for ROI workstations only. Maxon's a totally different ballgame, AMQ, all of that is their own electrical. If you want 20 amp, it's gonna be $280 per station. And then the part number for electrical is always electrical, and it's always on a separate line item on your quote. If you don't see electrical on your quote, you're not getting electrical. Unless for some reason, every once in a while, somebody builds it into the stations, but it should say includes electrical. Otherwise, if you don't see those notes, then let your client know there's no electrical planned and that if they need it, they're gonna have to buy it. They'll have to buy it.